people are just taking longer. They're just taking longer to decide because if the economy is not going well, they go into save mode. The same thing as we were in COVID. Suddenly everybody shut down. I'm not spending money on anything, right? And they're doing it on homes. They're basically saying, I don't think I want to make the purchase now. And even though they can afford it, they've got the job to do it, and everything else is in position to do it. Uncertainty is basically saying, things are too iffy right now for us to take the plunge. And I think that's some of what the dialogue will be today.
We have a lot of people moving up in their worlds with different homes and putting their houses on the market, but we don't have a lot of first-time home buyers willing to take that bold move and make that first step. And it could be due to a lot of the uncertainty with not only their jobs, but just the economy around them. And interest rates are coming down, and it doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't want to take advantage of that, because this is the time that they have wild amount of listings to look at, over 5 months of active inventory right now. And yet they're not making that first step to purchase a home. So things like the economy and or general affordability is still a factor for a lot of first-time home buyers.
And the tendency really is that and rightfully so, every buyer is looking at the long term. They're not looking at the short term, they're looking at the long term. So I get myself into a brand new house, can I be sure that I'm going to have the job and everything else to pay for it? Or is our tariffs going to play a part of that? Am I going to have a job that's going to go away in the next little? I got AI coming into on the scene. Am I going to have jobs? All those things are playing into the decision making to make the big purchase, the biggest purchase of their life. I should say, however, is that the lower end of the market continues to be the driving force in our market here. Mm-hmm. It hasn't changed. It still consumes about 55% of our market. And so that's a good sign locally.
So I believe our fall market fell a little bit flat in terms of our actual number of sales. So it was a reduction to only 381 sales across Windsor-Essex, which is significantly lower than what last year brought in at about 422. So, definitely hesitation. We were expecting a busier fall market. We were expecting a busier spring market. Those things just have not happened. It's still just been wildly stable and no big ticks up or down.
But we also expected, most people expected the tariffs to go away by now, right?
Yeah.
So when we made those predictions, we thought, well, the tariffs will be settled by now. We'd move along and people could settle in and figure out where they're going. And that's still an ongoing problem, as we see. Supposedly, possibly closer to a deal now. If that doesn't get solved, or not solved so much as determined, I guess really it's determined. What are we going to have to deal with it? Are we going to get less of it? I mean, that's the point. If we could have some kind of position taken on the matter, then the economy or the consumers in the economy could make decisions based on it. Right now, they're undecided. When they're undecided, the consumer is undecided. It's just the way it is. And in spite of these various different uncertainties, sales prices seems to be resilient, staying where it is, because the upper market is still counteracting the lower market. It's still strong enough that it's doing that. All that speaks to is really, at the end of the day, is that we are still affordable. And because we're affordable, we still have buyers and sellers still coming to the marketplace. We hope that continues.
Yeah, no, we've still seen lots of activity and bustling around in our offices with people that are interested in getting their houses on the market, and that they are selling as long as they have those realistic expectations, which sounds like at this point we're repeating ourselves, but it is still an issue month to month over some people having unrealistic expectations from a COVID market that just simply does not exist anymore. I think it's about time people swallow that pill and move on. And it just seems like it's a lot harder for people to do than you'd think.
I mean, we in our office just went through this recently, where we went into all various different areas. Like we went to Amherstburg, LaSalle, various parts of Windsor, and we've broken down all the housing prices, and it fluctuates greatly from one area to the other. The average sale price in LaSalle could be around $700 and some odd thousand. That's what it costs in LaSalle. I can move over to Amherstburg and it's 600 and some odd thousand. But that's still higher than the median for Windsor-Essex, right? So when we quote an average of $500 and some odd thousand for $575,000 as being the average for the Windsor-Essex County market, that's taking all of those and putting them all together. You go to Leamington, your average is in the 400s, right? So these are different numbers for each area. You should expect as you move from area to area that they will be completely different.
The builders in our area definitely are feeling a bit of a squeeze because of that exact logic, right? It's resale homes because there's so much product on the market right now. It would make a lot more sense for someone to go with a resale home because that's where they can actually potentially get more for their dollar versus building and still having to invest money in landscaping, et cetera, to get it to exactly what they want. So it's definitely a shifting market in that regard. But being just outside of Windsor, right, not being right in Windsor, seems to be a little bit more popular. So those prices, you are seeing competition in areas like LaSalle for, areas that are developing, great homes, great prices, just outside of Windsor. So Windsor has a lot more available, and that unfortunately just isn't matched with the actual buyer interest. We had 85 bungalows sell, the highest obviously in terms of the most popular style of home, which could definitely relate a lot to those that are leaving their two-story homes and going into something that's more accessible long-term. So that demand would be higher, and therefore those prices would be able to get more versus a two-story. Less of them are selling, and the price is certainly reflective of that. But we have a lot of two-stories that are still sitting on the market because of the oversupply of them.
People are still holding on. Everybody wants to get the most for their house. They're still holding on to the novel idea of the COVID, what they heard during COVID, and maybe I can get that number. And they ought not to anymore. That is long gone, and it was an anomaly, and you need to treat that as an anomaly. Most people who are even appraising houses right now do not take any of the houses sold during COVID as a comparable. They basically eliminate it because it was an anomaly, and it's not going to be there for years to come. You will not see those prices again for a long period of time. People have to wrap their heads around that, unfortunately, and sometimes that's a little harder to do than and we try to convince them of it, of course, but that's a little bit harder to do and harder to accept. And so they tend to want to hold on to the property, expecting to get those values. Those are not there anymore.
And the only thing that is up in September 2025 would be, surprise, surprise, the listings. So we are at 1,262 listings that hit the market in September, which brings us to over 2,200 active listings today, which is record high.
The inventory levels at a 5-month supply is just really going to be really difficult on a lot of folks who are expecting to sell and aren't going to be able to sell, or it's going to take a lot longer to sell than they totally expected. So get ready for those things, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that you may have to wait longer.
So we're still very much with the annual sales and list ratio at 37%, which has been that way for the entire year, which is very much a buyer's market, just lacking buyers. So, we've had interest rates as low as 3.7, which is fantastic, not something we've seen in quite some time. So definitely a good time to return to the market, and now is your time to be picky and to find the house that best suits you. Days on market are continuing to climb. They were a low of 24 days in April, and we're up to 30 days in September. So definitely nothing is happening overnight. Prepare for in-depth relationships with your realtor as you're in the long haul for 30 to 60 days to sell your home. So moving on to condo sales, they're starting to climb back up. We only had 63 sales last month, and they're up to 73, which is higher than where we were sitting last year at 61. So condo sales are on the rise. That is definitely most of the time an affordable sector of our market, which is great, as that certainly has brought back some buyers. So we'll see where that continues to go over the next couple months.
Yep, and I think it's a strong market. We don't see any new condo buildings being built interestingly enough, because that's slowed right off and dropped off. People are holding off on their projects here as well. But what we see is the completion of buildings that were started last year and maybe not be all totally sold out at this point in time. And I think that that's a healthy market and will likely sell out, mostly because much of that is under the $500,000 range, and it fits a new home buyer or somebody to buy into that particular market based on price. They can get something in that kind of category, anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000. So that I see will be they're certainly going to be able to sell them. It shouldn't cause any or pose any problem for the builder developer who's done that. I don't see new ones coming on it because, again, now you're into a new land cost, new building costs, all those things. Tariffs are going to affect it. All that kind of stuff is going to come into play. So don't expect to see a lot of building of new condos in the market in the next little while.
So we'll see if our unusually hot October translates into a unusually hot market, maybe a delayed fall market. We'll see what happens next month. But as always, thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you next month. If you have any questions regarding our market, reach out to any Lepage realtor at any time. They'd be happy to help.